with that being said, it is my great pleasure to introduce Rose Day, the General Manager at Heartwood Biomass. Rose is a great partner to Motherlode Job Training in the Central Sierra Economic Development District and has been working with Motherlode since you came to Tuolumne County. So please give a big hand for Rose Day.
Thank you, Alex. Well, good morning, everyone. I am seeing a lot of old friends of Heartwood in this room, and I'm hoping, after you hear what I have to say, some new friends. I'm going to start from the beginning, for those of you that aren't familiar with Heartwood, with what we do, and it's why we do what we do. So for most of you that have lived in California for any amount of time, this slide is actually very old news. We have a wildfire crisis. The cost of fighting these fires is accelerating. The intensity of these wildfires increases year after year. We can very clearly see the historic trends. We know this, but we have to ask ourselves, why? Why did these fires get so catastrophic? Why did they devastate communities? Why did they destroy our natural resources? So many of you also know what unmanaged forests look like. They look a lot like picture C. And we happen to have a lot of these forests in the Sierra region. Some of our forests look like B, right, where you have a lot of down, small diameter timber. And then some areas that we've been effective in treating look like picture A, where fire can actually go through that landscape and it can result in a low intensity, non-catastrophic wildfire. So that is why Heartwood is in business. That's why we were founded in 2011 in Oregon, which I will talk to you all about momentarily. Okay, I can operate technology, but not paper. Noted. All right, another part of our mission is rural community vitality. So at each of our facilities, with one shift, we do have the capacity to provide 25 direct, full-time, year-round employment jobs. We also create additional jobs through the supply chain. So these can be truck drivers, warehouse workers, logistics, other suppliers. We actively participate in forest restoration, and we create more market demand for the retail products that we make. So what we do is take hazardous wildfire fuel that you saw on the previous slide, and we turn it into retail products. Some of our customers are SafeMart, Safeway, QFC, Kroger, Walmart. You can actually find our products in those stores throughout California, Washington, and Oregon. So how do we do all this? You might be wondering. Well, we make the most of our forests. So the wood that has little to no value for traditional industry is often left in slash piles. It's logging waste, it's forest thinning, maybe it's material that had defects like blue stain or cat eye. For some reason, industries like SBI, they rejected that material, which means it has no economic value. Our job is to make sure it's monetized. So one of the things we make is bundled firewood. This is what I was referencing. You can see it SafeMart, lots of those big box retailers. In Oregon, our kilns have been operational, so we sell a kiln-dried, heat-treated product. In Tuolumne County, our kilns should be operational next week. I feel a little superstitious saying that out loud, but we'll hope for the best. So we use small diameter, non-sol, or non-merchantable material to make these products. It's also an economic driver for forest restoration. So by generating revenue, we're enabling wildfire hazardous fuel removal to be completed in the intended scale. We also make trellis poles. So these are things like fence posts. It's trellising for orchards, vineyards, hops farms. We sell directly to farmers, but we also, in the California market, sell directly to retailers like Tractor Supply, Coastal, other farm stores. We have the benefit in California. The treatment facility is just in Riverbank, so trucking is very cheap if the customer wants their poles treated. We also, of course, we have residuals from manufacturing, things like peeler shavings, wood chips, bark, hog fuel. All of these things can be used either in our facilities or in other community partners like Jamestown Energy to produce electricity. Our kilns in Wallowa County, Oregon are also powered by our residuals to produce heat and electricity. So we're able to actually utilize the whole log, including the waste. And then another exciting product, which you'll hear more about later, is wood straw. So wood straw is a soil erosion prevention product. It's made from shredded waste veneer from plywood manufacturing. It's highly effective for erosion control, specifically in burn scars, new construction, anything that creates disturbed soil it's useful for. It's superior to agricultural straw because it's not a vector for invasive species or weeds, and it also can hold its shape. You can see a little bit in that picture. It has a blocky, chunky structure, so unlike ag straw, it won't just collapse on itself the first time it rains. It can actually hold some snow on it and still hold that matrix, and it allows young saplings and plants to grow up underneath it. There's actually a really interesting project in Oregon where they used wood straw to protect seedlings of an endangered wildflower in a mountain alpine valley. And of course, my favorite thing to talk about is workforce development. We provide competitive wages, we provide on-the-job training, and we create supportive workplace environments where people can actually succeed, they can earn a family wage, they can see themselves progressively gain more skills and a viable career path. So, I'll go a little off script here. Has anyone in this room been to the great state of Oregon? Can you just raise your hand? Yeah? What cities have you all visited in Oregon? You can yell at me.
Portland.
Portland. Bend. Tillamook. Okay.
Salem.
Salem.
Thomas.
Right. Klamath. Right. Corvallis. Beautiful.
Grants
Grants Pass. Right. So, Wallowa County, Oregon is literally as far east and north as you can physically travel in the state of Oregon. It is literally the end of the road. The population of this county is about 7,000, give or take, so it's a very rural community. Heartwood's flagship facility is located in Wallowa County, Oregon, and a couple years ago we were the single largest private employer. So we employed, as a private company, the most people of any business in that county. So very rural, it's very mountainous. It also has a lot of the same challenges you all described on these sticky notes this morning. And it has a lot of the same forest health and wildfire risk factors. So our company was founded to try to find an economic solution for all of the problems that you all just described as well. Of course, Oregon is in a different region, so that's Forest Service Region 6. In Region 5, which we've been operating in Tuolumne County since last October 2024, we're actively processing material from the Cerro project, Grizzly Flat in El Dorado County. We have a diversity of product lines, which you just learned about. We have a lot of active workforce development programs, which I'm going to talk more about. We actually have partnerships with educational institutions. I have students working on site with my staff now, and our economic impact is growing. As we scale up and stabilize operations, I expect that to continue growing more. There we go. So, my favorite thing, as promised, bragging about my team. On this slide, you're going to see Amanda and Sean. Amanda is actually in a motherload job training program. She's actually been through 2 now. She started in the WEX program, Workforce Reentry Program, and she's been so successful we were able to move her to an on-the-job training contract. Yesterday, I was also able to give her a raise and a promotion, so she's the shift lead at my facility now. I know Tony's happy to hear that. Amanda has excelled, she's demonstrated excellent leadership, and I'm so happy to have her on my team. it gives me the capacity to come and talk to you all. We also have Sean. So he formerly worked in construction and trades. All of his work experience as an adult was just erecting scaffolding down in the Bay Area, East Bay. He moved here to be closer to his family and was incredibly nervous about learning a new industry, but he's also excelling in his role. Right here, I have Javier. That was actually his second day on the job, so he started work on Monday. He's fantastic. We're happy to have him. In the foreground, you have Brandon. So he was one of my original hires, referred through Motherlode job training, and he's now our safety professional. He does all of our safety inspections, fire extinguisher, and he really takes the lead on training these new employees. And so I want to brag about these people, because without these on-the-job training programs, I could not have built a team from scratch in 1 year as robust and just together. I don't know how else to describe them as they are today. I am going to talk about the CDL driver training more in the next slide, so just put a pin in that. We also have, I mentioned, Columbia College students. So I have a work-based learning program where students like Elias learn from employees like Brian how to weld and fabricate equipment in an industrial setting. And some of these employees, or two of the students, are also part-time employees at the facility. So they are welding kiln baskets to go into those kilns I talked about earlier. And then when they're working their shifts, they're actually seeing what they're making used in our operation. So they are on site now. This is our first semester with this work-based learning program with Columbia College. In the future, I'm talking with Somerville and Sonora High School to do similar programs with their students, in addition to many more semesters with Columbia College. There we go, Ryan and Elias again. And then of course, we have more graduates from more workforce training programs. So the HELO program, Heavy Equipment and Logging Operations, is actually where the college puts students with contractors like Sierra Resource Management or my facility. They learn how to run heavy equipment. They learn the operations, forestry management, and then I also have directly hired graduates from that program, including forestry core. So I have 2 HELO graduates and 1 forestry core graduate. And then this is actually a picture. That's Mike Tarango. He came to the facility last year. He's an original hire on the job training contract. He'd never operated more than a forklift. And then last year I was able to teach him every piece of rolling stock in our facility. And now he's our primary log yard operator. Right, so why does this matter? Well, we're not just making stuff out of wood. We're actually creating multiple entry points for people from a diversity of backgrounds, different points in their lives. We have employees from across the region. So Mike, on the last slide, he actually commutes from Modesto every day because working here is so appealing to him and it's made such a difference for his family. I was also able to give him a raise last week as well.
Yay.
He's very motivated. All right. So I'm going to talk about some of our active projects specifically in this region. I can operate this paper. There we go. So the Cyril project, many of you are familiar with it. It is a massive project with many different phases. So social and ecological resilience across the landscape. It's an initiative to create fuel breaks to protect communities and resources. And I'm sorry, Brian, I am oversimplifying that. Good. So Heartwood, my company, we contract. BurnBot is another player in this. Some of you may be familiar with BurnBot. BurnBot is a tech and mastication company. They have contracted the logging operations of this specific project to Sierra Resource Management. Oh, sorry, I need to speak up. Is that better?
It's better.
Good. All right, so we're accepting timber that's 4 to 24 inches in diameter. This is sick, dead, dying, partially burned trees. It's also very small diameter, overcrowded trees. What this is doing is creating fuel breaks to protect communities. So all the communities on the 108 corridor, Beardsley Lake, these are really important resources for us. So So this is a photo, actually of the first load that we received from the Cyril project, and you can actually see on that log track how much that is small diameter material. So prior to opening this facility, there was nowhere for this material to go. It would sit in massive flash piles in the woods. But we're able to create economic value out of it and make peeled poles, like the ones you see in that photo. And so these are the poles that I mentioned go directly to Tractor Supply and other retailers. So we will also start, we're hoping as soon as next week, removing material from the Grizzly Flat project in El Dorado County. So this was an area that was devastated by the Caldor fire. It's a major fuel removal. Most of this is burn scar. Heartwood was awarded a grant for hazardous fuel transportation assistance on another project that I'm going to talk about. But we're hoping we can demonstrate that those trucks and trailers can be used on a regional scale. So part of this will integrate the CDL driver training program. We're also going to be helping that community recover by creating economic incentives for this material to be removed from the landscape. So this is a photo of some log decks, burn salvage that I visited in the Grizzly Flat footprint. And then on the other side, we see a photo of finished product that we will be producing from that material. So burn salvage is great for our business model. I mentioned kilns. Everyone wants their firewood to be dry, right? So burn salvage actually makes excellent kindling and firewood, which is why we're so interested in this project specifically. So to summarize it, what we have is landscape scale treatment in action. We can process underutilized material and train the next generation at the same time, and we can make it profitable. Okay. So before I even talk about this project, the Rock Creek Integrated Resource Stewardship Contract, I just want to thank everyone who supported Heartwood in writing the HAFTA grant. It was the first grant I wrote this last year, and we were awarded it. Forest Service, both locally and on a national level, wrote letters of recommendation. Mark Scott, the logging contractor, Stacy Martin from Sierra Resource Management, and Mike Albrecht from the American Loggers Council were all extremely supportive of this initiative. And that means a lot to me because it shows completing these projects in their originally intended scale and volume is incredibly important to all of those people. So in the Stanislaus National Forest, many of you know, if you've driven around, we have very steep roads. Some of the roads are in good condition, some of them have very tight turns, and so this creates a transportation bottleneck. The Rock Creek project was originally bid for chip van access. So I'm pretty sure most of you have probably seen the high-walled white chip vans. They're driving down the highway in between different processing facilities. So they cannot turn on very tight, steep, mountainous roads. There is some equipment that can. So this is the project area, for those of you that aren't intimately familiar with it. So the grant that I wrote was for a special type of log trailer that can access the kind of terrain in a very high-risk fireshed, meaning it's our priority to make sure that these treatment volumes aren't reduced and the project can actually be effective. So this is a short logger, or a mule train. This type of log trailer setup is used widely in other regions of the U.S., especially Washington, Oregon, Idaho. It hasn't been adopted in California, predominantly because we don't have a paper industry here. Up north, we do have paper mills, and so harvesting small diameter short timber actually has an economic incentive in other regions. In California, those industries haven't existed. However, it's not new technology. We just need to apply it to a new purpose. So this is another photo of those mule trains, or short loggers. And so with these trailers, we can place CDL drivers who have got their licensure through a mother-led job training program. We can place them with experienced logging truck drivers to both move the material from the forest to the facility and also provide on-the-job training. And I don't know if any of you have seen a log truck driver. It's not the same as over-the-road driving. So when these brand new CDL graduates come out with their brand new CDLs, that's over-the-road driving. Right? Driving a log truck for this specialized kind of terrain is actually a skill you have to develop over years. And you need someone to teach it to you, and that doesn't exist unless you were born into it or very lucky. So investing in that kind of training so we have a pool of drivers who are actually able to perform this job is very important. And that's what I just described. So we have a very local problem. This is just one specific Forest Service project that Heartwood wrote the grant to demonstrate we can apply this model, we can apply this transportation to many projects across the region. So we did discuss transportation. It is a bottleneck. Oftentimes there are long distances from the forest to the processing facilities. We have an urgent need, as you all remember from the first slide. We have to complete these treatments quickly and in their originally intended volume. And so we are utilizing whatever resources are available. We're being creative by deciding we really need to train more drivers, we really need specialized equipment. We're using best practices from other regions. And one thing I want to demonstrate specifically with Rock Creek is we can apply best practices from other regions, even other industries, to solve our problems as well. So some policy implications. If industry demonstrates that this model is successful, that can really influence policy and future funding mechanisms. So it's not just the grant that we were awarded. There are other programs, other things within California that I hope this group's going to talk about later that can also help to fund these types of initiatives. So this is why we're all here today. We have industry, we have workforce development professionals, we have educational institutions. We're all playing in the same sandbox. Right? And that is why the Mother-led team has brought us together. I want to thank Sophia, wherever she is, for putting this conference on. So we can create a culture of innovation, mutual support, and make our region more resilient as a whole. Right? And then the next thing I want to talk about is a hub potential. So Heartwood, we built a state-of-the-art facility out of a decade plus of real-world experience in Oregon. We have diverse product lines. We have existing workforce development programs, and we approach our work with a regional collaboration mindset. We could, in the future, co-locate other business opportunities. We could expand these training and education programs. I'm really planting these seeds because I'm hoping to have discussions with all of you about opportunities. We could have a technology demonstration site. There's lots of talk about biochar, wood bricks, other building materials. But we can also have a regional hub similar to being circular that the Central Valley has. Just ideas. But I would love to put Heartwood on the map at the state level for a leader in innovating. And one way I want to do that, I mentioned wood straw. I think the California market is particularly prime for wood straw, not just for wildfire remediation, but also construction. And the reason I highlighted this photo is this road was built to install our fire suppression water tanks. And then after we installed that, we actually had to apply a soil erosion prevention. We used wood straw that we manufactured in Oregon to do that. This drone photo was taken right after we applied the wood straw. We actually seeded directly through the wood straw with a graze-friendly mixture because we have co-use of this property. It's also used to graze cattle. And if you go to my site today, which I invite all of you to do, you will not be able to see that road. So it is completely grown up with native grasses. You can't see the wood straw, you can't see the road. That's less than a year later. And so the potential for this, if we can design the equipment, right? And we need ag partners for that. We need people who understand balers and shredders and all of those things. You know, the potential for producing this at steady state is huge for California. And then eventually, maybe we could see a lot more hardwoods. All right, I think I'm within my time. Did I do it?
All right, so we have about 10 minutes for questions and answers, so throw your hands up, ask your questions of Rose, and I will bring the mic to you. Great presentation, lots of stuff to digest there. Where are our questions? Someone right over here. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Rose. Tom Brosman. Good to see you. Wonderful presentation. I'm interested in the economic costs of each of the stages of the processes. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on, labor, fuels, any other components that you're trying to address and make more economical in the process.
Yep, this one's working. Perfect. So I think, I'm going to just focus on one of those, and it's going to be labor. One thing California benefits from that we really struggled with in Oregon was the support for workforce development. Right? So we are rich in workforce development support here. And it's through these on-the-job training contracts, workforce reentry, the partnerships with the schools, and I'm actually able to train up individuals that have very little to no prior experience at relatively low cost to the company. And so what I would encourage everyone to think about is utilizing the programs that we already have in place. Labor is a huge cost for any business, right? So if we can just shave that away a little bit while we're providing skill building for those workers, that makes a huge impact.
What about the possibility of generating on-site electricity?
Yeah. Repeat the question. He asked about the possibility of generating on-site electricity. So the cogen system that we have on site that we'll eventually use are clean bark chips. It will provide the heat and electricity for our kilns and possibly some for our warehouse, which will offset some of our electricity use. The size of cogen that we would need to produce enough electricity for our entire plant, when you talk about equipment like debarker, chipper, we don't have that right now. So that would be a much, much larger energy production. But at least we're looking at offsetting some of our costs for just the core production. Jen?
How does on-site training for truck drivers, how does somebody apply for that?
Someone will apply for that by going through the CDL driver training program with Motherlode Job Training, and then from that pool of graduates, I will interview them just like any other employee. They'll go through the same process, and then we'll select a few to start and place them with experienced drivers. So I think the first step is to talk to James Hansen.
That's always a good first step.
Hey Rose, thank you for the presentation. Can you talk a little bit about, so I know that you were one of 2 or 3 recipients for a very large kind of grant that the county went after, and as I look around this room, I see a lot of faces that were instrumental in the county receiving that grant. So can you talk to that process a little bit and what that experience was like? And I'm more interested, we hear about we need infrastructure. How do we move the infrastructure forward when those grants are getting fewer and fewer, especially at the scale that's needed to build infrastructure? Can you talk about that a little bit and what counties need to be looking at to get some of that capacity?
I think what I'll go to is moving the infrastructure forward. From an operational standpoint, just getting the necessary permitting approved on the county level for physical buildings that we need, such as dry storage. Right? That process itself can actually slow down the business being able to generate more revenue or ramp up. Regarding the HUD grant, unfortunately, I cannot, because when we went through that process, I was still the manager of the Oregon facility. But if anyone has questions about HUD, I would love to connect you with Matt Keene, who drove that process when we went through it. But I would say definitely building permitting is one of our biggest barriers for getting our capital projects done timely.
Carl?
Can you explain the high school involvement? We got 2 high schools. Is there an apprenticeship of some type that they come to your facility and they become certified in being an operator of one of these types of equipment? Can you explain that?
Yes, there is not a current apprenticeship. What we're working on is students who are in one of the high schools, whether Somerville or Sonora. I think what we'll do is start with the shop teacher, because he is also on the advisory board for Columbia College. And we'll start by having high school students do similar welding and fabrication that the college students are doing. I would, of course, like to expand this to equipment operations, logistics, warehousing, all of the other nuts and bolts of running a business, but really leveraging the contacts at each educational institution that have shown interest when I've reached out. So we start with one and then take that across the finish line and then we add more.
Question on the front end in terms of interfacing, let's say, with a national park. What would be some of the key drivers or key learnings in terms of landing the contracts and then performing work and then getting paid? So I'm just curious about some of the best business practices or key learnings or success drivers in terms of working with the federal government agencies and what you can share in terms of what you learned. Thank you.
I think I can speak mostly to the Forest Service, and so as a business and a management team, it's just our best practice to maintain historical relationships across regions, because as Forest Service employees move up in their careers. For example, the Rock Creek project I talked about, we were actually able to tap into someone who lives and works in a different region now. And so really building those relationships over the years makes us successful. And then understanding that the key objective is that we get the material to our facility. And the key objective for Forest Service is that we get these treatments completed and their intended outcomes are executed. So when writing grants or discussing projects, it's important to make sure that what we're saying we're going to deliver aligns with what that agency wants to deliver as well. And then not just say it, but actually do it, right? That matters too. Which I think is very important. It's tempting to try to spread yourself over many, many projects. But I'm a firm believer that if we do one thing very well, we can replicate it many times. I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Got one over here.
Hi, Alex Gorman, Yosemite Rivers Alliance Forest Health Program Manager. From an operational standpoint, what are your lowest and highest size limits? And what do you require any sort of organization of the fuels, the biomass on the ground, or can you go and retrieve that however it's organized?
Great question. So minimum 4-inch top, maximum 24-inch butt. That is what my facility can process. Beyond that, if we receive oversized logs, I I direct them to American Wood Fibers. So they're another industry partner that can utilize up to 40 inches, I believe. As far as sorting the log decks in the woods, generally the logging contractor has decks at the landing and they sort it based on customer. So if a truck is going to SPI, they're going to get those logs. If a truck is going to American Wood Fibers, they're going to get different logs. And if they're coming to me, we're probably going to get a mixed up jumble of them. We do most of our log sorting, well, we do all of our log sorting right now in our log yard with 2 dinglehead processors. And so we accept mixed diameter, mixed length, mixed species. It can be partially burned, it can be very green. Does that answer your question? Perfect.
Amazing. We don't have time for any more questions today, or right now I should say. There are plenty of time for more questions today. Unfortunately, we're at end of time now, but please find Rose. She's a wealth of information. She's experienced. She is happy to answer all your questions. But let's get another round of applause for Rose. Please.